Okay, so I said I would answer questions following my two talks at Vegas, and these are some terrific questions that you've sent me, and I'm going to answer all of them. So, the first question, I put them in groups because they definitely came out as things that could be grouped together by topic. The first question, which is a great catch from Karen Lopez, who said, speaking of the mountain presentation, forgive me if I missed this because she's kind, but you asked in the beginning if we preferred the good or the bad news first and hinted that you'd share with us the significance of which we chose. Could you share or elaborate on that significance here? So I asked the same question at SPS in London over the summer, and I ran over time and I forgot to actually go back and address that exact question. And so this time I double, triple, quadruple promised myself I would answer that question, and I didn't. So what I really wanted to get to was what your foundational mindset is. Biologically, we are programmed to look for difference, and difference is an alert system to, because I talked about this in my talk. So your brain is just programmed to keep you alive, and that's why it looks for difference, and that's why it looks for things that are wrong. So as a biological bias, we are more likely to look for the wrong things. We are going to look for the bad news rather than the good news. And if we don't train ourselves out of it, we are going to habitually be looking for the bad news. And I want you to think quite carefully about whether or not you do anything to combat that, because in fact, a lot of the news isn't bad. I talked about this book during my talk, The Happiness Advantage. I think this is probably the most important book I have ever read, and I've read a lot of books. The science is pretty clear that a positive mindset brings better things to you. The more you are looking for good things to happen, the more you will notice the good things, because your brain is a filtering device. You are not seeing objective reality. You are seeing what you choose to see. And it can go all kinds of crappy ways. And people have used this, they've weaponized this to say that you can think yourself out of certain conditions, when in fact you have to work yourself out of certain conditions. You cannot think your way out of clinical depression, but you can work your way through it. They're different. They are really different. So to start with, I want you to think about what your foundational response is. Do you want the bad news first, or do you want the good news first? And if you want the bad news, I want you to think about whether or not there's a way to spin that so that it's useful to you. So I'm a chronic worrier. The way you know that I love you is if I worry about your death. It's not because I want you to die, but it's because I'm worried that you're going to die. I had a great therapist in New York, and he advised that I get a book called The Positive Guide to, damn it, I couldn't find it on my shelf. So The Positive Power of Negative Thinking. I started there. I started by taking the worry that is natural to me, that I have fostered, that was part of how I was brought up. There's a cultural layer to it as well. I took the negative stuff and looked at how I could make that something that was useful to me, that furthered my agenda, because I know what my goals are. I have known what my goals are since I was 8. I have known what I wanted to do. It just took me a long time to have the courage to actually step into my life and do what I wanted to do with my life. So I started with the positive power of negative thinking. And then, I gradually went through different iterations of things that could train you to feel better about the world. And most recently, with my current therapist, I have been working on self-compassion, which it turns out is extraordinarily difficult. If you are used to punishing yourself, self-compassion is a really tricky thing. But I'm going to encourage you, I'm going to really encourage you to embrace this idea that you want to shift your mindset, that you can shift your mindset, that neuroplasticity works in your favor, and you can change the way you think, and you can change your reality. You can change your reality from this worried, anxious, waiting for the bad thing to happen person into this person who is living their life, expects good things to happen, and they do. Not because of the thinking itself, but because you're ready to act on the good thing that you can now see. I hope that's clear. I'm trying to keep these short because I am going to go through all of these questions. And I will probably circle back to these ideas in different pieces because we've got questions that are quite similar, but with a slightly different twist. So my question about do you want the good news or do you want the bad news first is an invitation to examine your own mindset. Where is your mindset and where do you want it to be? I am telling you, the science says you want it to be with happiness. You want it to be looking for the opportunities, not looking for the bad things that are going to happen. Your brain isn't going to stop being on alert. Your brain isn't going to stop looking. It's way, way, way too ingrained. The amygdala that I talked about during the talk, it's on high alert. But you can train the frontal cortex, you can train a lot of your mind to look for the good. One of the things that Sean Akers talks about is looking for gratitude, moments of gratitude in your life. And I've been practicing, wake up in the morning, think of 3 things that you're grateful for before you go to sleep, 3 things that you're grateful for. And you'll see a number of times during this mini talk, I've stumbled. One of the things that I've had to do in being compassionate to myself and shifting my mindset away from the negative is to forgive myself my errors and allow that they just happen. And this does not need to be perfect to be useful. We're going to come back to that. All right, that's part 1. We're going to keep them nice and short. I'll be back.